Please subscribe to our YouTube, The Highly Advised Podcast, or you can follow us on Instagram at The Highly Advised Podcast. Or if you want to keep up with us on your daily feed through Twitter, check out Advise Highly.
Yo, so we decided to come back at the end of the show because we had an update on Conor McGregor's situation and, some of the fallout from the fight, earlier today. It is a Monday and we are here and we decided to give you guys a little bit of an update on what's going on.
With that being said, so initially, let's start it off with, as anybody knows, Conor McGregor did break his leg. He broke his tibia. He came out and said during the fight with Dustin Porier in UFC 264, and he had some words for us after his recovery from his surgery. In so many words, he pretty much said the win was illegitimate. He's got about 6 weeks until he's fully recovered and he'll start back training. How do you guys feel about that?
Do you think he actually meant six weeks and then I'll be training, or 6 weeks and we'll see what the future holds?
6 weeks and I'll learn how to walk. That's
he said 6 weeks on the crutch.
So he said 6 weeks on the crutch.
Yeah.
Hold on, what?
No.
I mean, he's not going to be bedridden for 6 weeks.
No, that's okay. That's fine. He's probably not bedridden right now, but 6 weeks off. I just broke my leg. You know what I mean?
No, he said 6 weeks on the crutch. So I know that you gentlemen haven't had surgery, but when you have surgery, they don't keep you mounted to a bed. The first week, hey, you on a bunch of drugs. You need to be on bed rest. That second week, hey, you're going to see the orthopedist. You're going to go see the physical therapist right away to get it go. Because if not, all the muscles and shit is going to start getting weak and all that. They started early, especially when you're, and my physical therapist was telling me, for athletes, especially at the professional level, sometimes they have them doing it the same week that they get surgery done. So they have them start out but that's because their bodies, they're so athletically, gifted. They're able to start that early compared to the average person who's not athletic as somebody on a professional level. So his timeline, I don't think it's a far-fetched or ridiculous time. As far as him getting, when he says 6 weeks on the crutch, then back to blah, blah, blah. I mean, I don't think he's going to be training after 6 weeks, no, but him being like physical therapy and learning how to walk again, that's realistic.
Okay, so I guess the question is, between the three of us, when do we all think he's going to be able to fight again? Because we all know that Conor McGregor is going to try to fight at some point in time.
2022, it would be the earliest.
Yeah, I got, at the earliest I got is next summer.
Yeah, I agree.
Because I mean, if you look at it, right, to be honest with you, seeing Conor, even when he broke it, right, he was ready. Even when Dustin was walking out of the cage and talking, he wanted to get up and stand on his feet then. And they had to keep telling him, no, you got to sit down. So I think with Conor, he's going to be I feel like he's going to be a little too eager, possibly. And
I agree.
I hope I pray it doesn't lead to a re-injury or him hurting himself again. But if not, I mean, heck, look at what happened to Anderson Silva after he lost to Chris Weidman and he had that freak accident in the first fight. I think it took at least a year. I think
2 years.
You said 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Yeah, and essentially it was it wasn't like he broke his ankle. He broke his tibia, which I'll correct me if I'm wrong because I don't know what part exactly that is, but I know it's above your ankle.
Well, here's the thing, right? I think that Conor comes back towards the end of next year, only because I don't know, it's just going to take him a little bit of time to come back, and because of the type of injury, it's not all leg breaks are different. So his leg isn't Anderson Silva's leg, isn't Chris Weidman's leg, right? But at the same point in time, he did just break his leg, so it's going to take him a little bit of time to get back in the motion of things. So I just see him taking at the least until late next year. Me myself, I say around maybe September, August.
I think the biggest takeaway from watching that video, though, was the way he talked, as if he was winning the fight already. Because even he said, he was like, had it gone to the second round, I would have really showed you what I had to offer, essentially. I mean,
It's Conor. I mean, when Joe Rogan interviewed him, he was like he was punching the bleeding head off of him, kicking the bleeding legs off of him, and it's just Conor talking. And like, if you as a fan or a casual fan or whatever, even a Conor hater, bought into that, he did his job because now you got invested into what he's saying. When he was saying that shit, anybody with a brain between their fucking eyes, they know like he lost that round. I was going to score a 10-8 if he survived it. I think two judges scored it at 10-8, and it was clear that Conor lost that round. And yes, we don't know how the second round would have happened. Hence, Michael Chandler, Charles Oliveira, where Charles Oliveira looked like he was about to get knocked out. And now look at him now; he's the champ. But it was looking like Dustin was going to do more of the same in the second round. So when he was saying what he was saying, I'm like, that's just Conor talking. That's the machine. I mean, not the machine, but that's the marketing power that he got. So it didn't really. I didn't feel no type of way about it. I'm like, that's just Conor being Conor as usual.
The thing is, Ronda Rousey even pointed it out. Like, as soon as he fell on the ground, he was already talking about like ways to, buy his way into the next fight with Dustin. Like, I got to give him a little bit of credit because, like, for a dude who just broke his leg, his mind seems to be like, all right, what's the next step? You know what I mean? Like, and I know that's like very difficult pain. You know what I mean? So like, it's cool. I thought it was interesting to see. A lot of people have been talking about it over the last couple of days. And, you see the news pundits and whatnot. You see the news giving their review on the fight. And Shannon Sharpe had a little bit to say. Me personally, like, I try not to watch the ESPNs unless it's like actual MMA people, or at Fox Sports 1. They don't have an MMA show. So it's like, I enjoy both of their products to a certain degree, but they're not, for the most part, MMA analysts. Like, if you want to watch them, watch DC, watch Ariel, watch Kenny Florian, watch anybody else than any of those people.
I think that's the biggest gripe most MMA fans have overall, not even just UFC, is that, and primarily UFC, because that's the only sport that they cover out of MMA primarily, is that you have people that are new to the sport telling you what is really happening in the sport, like, and just playing into it, right? Anytime someone tells me, Shannon Sharpe says, hey, Conor's not even a top 5 fighter.
Even if he beat Dustin.
Yeah, exactly. If you beat Dustin Poirier, you still want to be a top 5 fighter. He would have beat the guy that passed on fighting for a belt to fight him for a payday.
I have a couple friends who, they don't really watch UFC, but they know who Conor is. They know John Jones. They know the big name guys, but they still don't know Francis Ngannou, Kamaru Usman. Yeah, like that's a casual fan. So when Shannon Sharpe, Stephen A., Skip Bayless, Max Kellerman, even though Max, he's a figurehead in boxing, when they all talk about MMA, their audience is the casual fan, or the fan that doesn't know anything about MMA. That's their audience. So because that audience is going to buy in and be like, oh, you know what? You're right. What they're saying, it makes sense, blah, blah, blah. We know what they're saying is crock of shit, or they're just thinking of shit, on the go.
They're just trying to say shit.
Right. Like when Max Kellerman and Teddy Atlas was doing the post-desk show, and we knew, like, hey, man, they're trying to think of something to say. They just don't know what they're talking about. Yeah. And Joe Rogan, when they brought it back to him, DC, and John Anik, Joe's like, yeah, I completely disagree with everything they said. And he tried to give a more technical breakdown of what happened in the fight. Now, I think, like, Shannon Sharpe, what he was saying, I'm not mad at the stuff he was saying, because once again, I'm looking at him like, okay, he doesn't really know the game of MMA. He barely knows anybody outside of the top stars in the game. And if he has to reference somebody, that's not Conor McGregor, Habib, or whomever, he's looking down at a script, they'll say the person's name and the record, et cetera, et cetera. So I wasn't mad at what he's saying. Yeah, there were some stupid things that he did say in that thing. Like, for example, oh, if he beat Dustin, he would even be top 5. You know, us MMA fans know that's ridiculous. But to the casual fan, they don't know who Dustin is. They think Dustin is some run-of-the-mill fighter. And if Conor can't beat Dustin, Conor, he's really washed up. And the only reason why they're hanging on to Khabib, it's not because of what Khabib can really do. It's because the fact that Khabib is undefeated. That's what kind of they cater to, like when boxing. Hey, this undefeated fighter, that undefeated fighter. They don't really cater to who's actually good and who's not good. You know, not saying that undefeated fighters are bad fighters, because obviously they're not. They're undefeated for a reason. But there's really good fighters who have maybe 1 or 2 losses on their record. So I just think that this will not change. It's good and bad. It's good because it helps bring MMA to mainstream sports media when you have the mainstream sports figureheads talking about it. But it's bad because it's also giving false knowledge and false narrative to the fans, where if they want to be interested in the sport, they're going to start running with narratives with people who don't cover the sport at all. They only cover it when Conor is fighting. So, and I just feel like that. So I agree, but also disagree with Uncle Shannon Sharpe's take.
At the end of the day, if you're not knowledgeable about something and you're speaking on it and you're speaking to an audience that believes whatever you say because they believe you know more than them because they're a casual fan, it's dangerous. Because then it gets to a point where you have a real conversation with someone that actually knows the sport or whatever, even if it's at a lighter level than someone that's like fully immersed and ingrained in it. You're just going to sound like, hey, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He needs to get out the room. And that's the biggest problem. I think, to me, my thing is the people I would respect hearing from are your Ariels, your Chels, DC's, Joe Rogan, Dan Hardy, someone like that. But when it's like, even like Stephen A. Smith one time, like I would say he was probably at the crux of it initially when they were trying to put him into the sport, but everybody was like, this dude knows nothing of what he's talking about.
You know, I don't really like watching Stephen A. Smith talk about MMA. I'm not going to lie. Only because sometimes I can tell he puts on and it's just like, all right, like enough's enough, Stephen A. Like Stephen A's going Stephen A. And that's cool. But like when it comes to MMA, I'd much rather just hear somebody get to it without all the theatrics. Shannon Sharpe, I can tell he watches MMA. And he was talking about Kamaru Usman when a lot of people weren't talking about Kamaru Usman. And I give him credit for at the least being a fan of the sport and trying to talk on it. But I'm not, when I hear him talk, it's just like, all right, like I can tell you're not into it, like really into it.
He's the same amount of fan that Stephen A. is.
Possibly.
Casual fan. Like if you're a real fan of the sport, you're never going to utter, hey, if you beat Dustin Porier, you're still not be top 5. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that stuck out to me was the whole thing with when he brought up Ronda Rousey and saying like, oh, people that changed the game were like Amanda Nunes, Holly Holm. And I'm like,
Amanda Nunes, right? Holly Holm. Yeah. I mean, so
Amanda Nunes, I 100% agree.
Holly Holm did do something very amazing.
She did, but that's like the highlight of her career in the sport, I would say.
Exactly. Like what she did, like
it changed the sport.
It changed the sport.
But she was the conduit to changing the sport. It was like she beat Ronda. She was the perfect person to beat Ronda. Yes. Then she lost the belt right after that. And then it was like, don't get me wrong, Holly Holm, highly respect her as a fighter, amazing boxer, so on and so forth. She has a pedigree and she has a record that speaks for itself. So she deserves to be where she is. She deserved to be the champion. But like when to me, my thing is this:
she's not Amanda Nunes, and she's not who Ronda Rousey was.
Exactly. When you're speaking of the Conor McGregors, the John Joneses, the Amanda Nuneses, the Ronda Rouseys, Holly Holm's not the first person that comes to mind. She comes to mind because she beat Ronda Rousey. She did the impossible.
Yes,
I will give her that. We definitely have to give her that. But other than that, like,
we are putting this out, and it's going to be on the end of the episode as well. Check out episode 64
Come on,
of the Highly Advised podcast. You can follow us at Highly Advised Podcast on YouTube, Highly Advised Podcast on Instagram, and Advised Highly on Twitter. We will be back here on Thursday. You have been highly advised.
You've been highly advised. Shasha.